In 2154, on the lush alien world of Pandora, live the Na'vi, beings that appear primitive but are highly evolved. Humans explore Pandora in search of a precious mineral, creating avatars to be able to enter the planet's toxic environment. Jake Sully, a paraplegic former Marine, still feels he can be a warrior. His intuition starts to come true when he travels light years to the space station on the planet Pandora. He awakens from nearly 6 years of uninterrupted cryosleep on the corporation's ship responsible for carrying an entire team. Jake is on the mission to replace his twin brother, a scientist, who was killed a week before departure in a robbery. Since the genomes of the two brothers were identical and the corporation had invested a lot of money in them, humans arrive on Pandora in a protected and isolated base due to its atmosphere rich in carbon dioxide, methane, and ammonia, making it impossible for them to breathe. The RDA Corporation is there to exploit the unobtainium ore, using heavy machinery, deforesting and extracting as much as they can from the land. Colonel Miles provides the newcomers with the main information and warns them about the dangers of venturing outside the protected area because every creature on the other side will be ready to take their lives, especially the native population of Pandora, the Na'vi. They are a species of humanoid beings, measuring nearly 3 meters in height, with tails, bones naturally reinforced with carbon fiber, blue skin, and they use arrows with a neurotoxin capable of killing in 1 minute. They are challenging to kill. Jake is stopped by Norman Spellman, who recognizes him due to the physical resemblance to his brother. Norman is a scientist and has prepared himself for a long time to control an avatar, learning the native Na'vi language and the avatar system's functioning. Both of them meet their avatars for the first time when they introduce themselves to the team. Both avatars have facial features similar to theirs because they are created from human DNA and that of the native. They also meet Dr. Max Battelle and Dr. Grace Augustin, a legend and the head of the Avatar program. She quickly belittles Jake due to his disability and being there in place of his brother for work. She then goes to her boss to complain about how stupid that decision is, as she only needs a researcher. Her boss responds by telling her that she's lucky the deceased researcher has a twin brother, and he needs her to find a diplomatic solution using the avatar since everyone in the corporation is there for the mineral, and the Na'vi must not get in their way. Jake and Norman will connect to their symbiotic avatars for the first time. Jake had never taken any tests or simulations before, and when questioned about why he is there, he tells the doctor that he got tired of hearing from doctors that he was incapable. And when he first connects to his avatar body, the disturbance from experiencing new sensations in his legs is far from destabilizing his mind. Jake feels as if he had never lost the ability to move. Despite his new body being much heavier, stronger, and taller, his balance and stability become second nature to him. All of these sensations truly make him happy. Disconnected, Jake's summoned by Colonel Miles, who looked at his record and realized he had been a soldier on other missions. Miles only wants to defeat the enemy, the Na'vi, and he needs someone to blend in with them, make genuine friendships so they can spy on the entire organization. This mission can only be entrusted to a soldier, and even though he serves Dr. Grace, he must also report to the Colonel. Connected back to the Avatar, this time, they move away from the corporation's protected area, exploring the region, and Jake is now armed, vigilant, and using all his senses in a place rich in untouched nature. While the doctor and Norm analyze routes at the site, Jake escorts them, but ends up touching plants that attract the attention of an animal. Although he remains calm and manages to drive the creature away, he realizes the real reason the animal was moving away. Behind him, there's another species. The doctor asks him to run, and as he flees and hides among the trees, Jake's daring nature becomes evident as he leaps from a waterfall from a great height, almost touching the bottom, managing to ward off the first creature chasing him. He's alone now, lost in the forest, and unbeknownst to him, a Na'vi named Neytiri is lurking, observing him, ready to attack. However, when she aims her arrow with neurotoxin, Neytiri is surprised by a floating insect-like creature that lands on the arrow's tip. She immediately understands and lets him go. The doctor still tries to locate him by flying over the area in an aircraft, but nighttime operations in that location are not allowed. Jake will spend the night in the forest. The doctor concludes by saying he won't survive until morning. During the early evening, Jake struggles to light a fire, but before he can protect himself, he's pursued by creatures hunting him. He fights to stay alive, but is saved by Neytiri, who had been watching him. She manages to drive away all the creatures on her own. She then extinguishes the torch Jake had lit and ends the suffering of one of the animals she had wounded. Night falls completely, and almost everything in the forest glows with its own fluorescent light. The two manage to communicate, and despite Jake thanking her for the rescue, she tells him that it was all his fault. She explains that she saved him only because she felt he had a strong heart, fearless, but at the same time, he seemed very foolish and ignorant. Like a child, he follows her along a high and treacherous path, asking her to teach him how to protect himself and become better. The path seems to sense every one of their steps, with nature perceiving everything like a motion sensor. When he loses his balance, Jake is surprised by the same creatures that landed on Neytiri's arrow. Several of them descend and partially cover him. She is also taken aback and explains to him that these are seeds from the sacred tree, very pure spirits. They encounter others in the forest, and Neytiri tells them what happened. They then take him to the colony of the Omaticaya clan, where everyone lives. He discovers that Neytiri is a princess, the daughter of the warrior leader and the queen and spiritual leader of the Omaticaya. Jake is put to the test by them, and his life is spared only after he says he's not a scientist and doesn't understand anything about the Na'vi. The leaders feel they should give him a chance, and Neytiri receives an order from her mother to teach him the customs and language of the Na'vi, to find out if he is truly different. That same night, Neytiri takes him to meetings and places of their people, and Jake immerses himself completely as one of them. While sleeping that night, he is awakened by the scientists in the laboratory due to his deep connection with the Avatar. Jake reports his success in his journey to everyone in the corporation and is received with approval for surviving that night. Then, the corporation's administrator assigns him the task of getting the Na'vi to leave the village located on the largest concentration of unobtainium within a 200 kilometers radius. If they don't leave within 3 months, they will have to be forcibly removed. Jake is dedicated to learning more about the Na'vi and their culture, as well as providing information to the military studying the area. Dr. Grace notices everything, seeing Jake talking to the colonel, and moves him to another distant base in the famous floating mountains of Pandora. There, he would be safe from the military, and Grace could re-establish peaceful communication with the Na'vi. Jake reconnects there, and Neytiri shows him an Ikram for the first time, winged creatures native to Pandora that represent a rite of passage in the lives of aspiring Na'vi warriors. They must choose an Ikram to tame, and the Ikram also chooses them. They are extremely difficult to ride, which means achieving it represents taking a prestigious position in the clan. Connected to their Ikram, they will fly with that single creature for the rest of their lives. Jake is excited to see Neytiri flying and can't wait to have his own. Every day, Jake has different lessons with her, becoming more and more familiar with the way of life, survival, language, and the feeling of everything. Understanding the flow and energy of the spirits of animals. With Neytiri, he needs to learn quickly. Over time, Jake gains trust, allowing Dr. Grace back into the clan. His connection with all that learning about the people and the forest grows as he understands the energy network that flows through all things. Neytiri realizes he's ready when he can respect an animal, even when he needs to take its life. Jake now needs to become a warrior, choosing and taming his Ikram, a challenging task as the Ikram only chooses the warrior and tries to kill him. He almost gets killed but manages to tame and make his first flight. Neytiri rejoices in Jake's dedication and effort, showing courage in all tasks, becoming a winged hunter. The adrenaline connection grows between Jake and Neytiri in their flights over the days. But flying had its dangers. There were even larger winged predators than the Ikrans, the Taurik, which hunted them during one of their territorial flights. Surviving the attack of the largest winged predator, Neytiri explains to him how dangerous Taurik is and that it has only been tamed by colony leaders 5 times over thousands of years. All the Na'vi know this story. Every night when Jake sleeps as an avatar on Pandora, he has to wake up in his real body, feeling the reverse, the weight of not being able to walk, the hunger of not being able to eat for Rayal, and the mental confusion of having spent so much time in another body, living everything the Na'vi taught him in the last 3 months. And with the time of his mission running out, he must go through one last ceremony to truly become one of them and have the power to speak as an equal within the clan. So he tells Colonel Miles, who, excited to have so much information from Jake's reports, promises him as a reward that he will regain the use of his legs when he returns. And for the first time, with Neytiri by his side, he connects to the Tree of Souls, where he can hear the voices as one of them. Neytiri has no doubt that Jake is now one of them and chooses him as her mate, joining him forever before the goddess of life, Ewa. Both sleep in the forest, but Jake disconnects from the avatar at night, and the next morning the plan to invade the Na'vi territory goes into action. Neytiri wakes up and tries to wake Jake, who is having a rushed breakfast at the base, to connect. The machines almost run over them until Jake connects and manages to stop the machines for a moment, climbing up and breaking the cameras. The two flee desperately toward the colony and encounter the clan's biggest warrior, who doesn't trust Jake and Grace. The colonel discovers that it was Jake's avatar that destroyed the cameras and goes after him to disconnect him once and for all. Disconnected from the avatar, Jake is almost killed by the biggest warrior, but is saved only by Neytiri's intervention. The colonel talks to Jake about what he's doing, trying to stop the command. And Grace explains why they shouldn't do it, saying that there's a type of electrochemical communication between the tree roots, and the Na'vi can connect to them as if they were constantly downloading and uploading data, accessing memories. And they're destroying everything, trampling over all that wealth. The commanders don't pay attention and dismiss everything she says. They then organize to attack the colony's tree and all the life living there. But with the efforts of the doctor and Jake, they manage to get a chance to talk to the clan to leave there within an hour. Jake and Grace's efforts to try to talk to the Amaticai are in vain when Jake reveals the truth that he already knew the entire plan of the humans to extract all the minerals from that area. The clan loses all trust in Jake, who had just become a warrior among them. He and Grace are tied up to be shown to everyone. The military, under Colonel Miles' command, arrives at the scene, and the Na'vi are completely willing to fight. However, the military's firepower is overwhelming, and despite the Tree of Life, where the entire Amaticai community lives, being a giant skyscraper of great strength, the military manages to bring down all the life that lived there using missiles, causing a real massacre and killing many. In the midst of all this, Jake and Grace are freed by the spiritual mother of the tribe, who asks for their help, and a pilot rebels upon seeing all the sadness in the forest. The leader of the clan, Neytiri's father, loses his life along with the Tree of Life. While everyone is banished from the colony, Jake and Grace are disconnected from their avatars and then captured by the military within the corporation. With only Dr. Max and the rebellious pilot as allies, they manage to escape and head to the mountain base, where they can relocate elsewhere with the help of an aircraft. During the escape, Dr. Grace is shot by the colonel, and her condition is critical, with significant blood loss. The only help they could receive was from the Amaticai, who now, with no home, were in the most sacred and untouched place in the entire forest, believing it to be a great temple to the goddess Ewa in the Tree of Souls, where everyone connects with their ancestors and the entire forest. With Jake as an outlaw, unable to show himself to the Amaticai to ask them to save Dr. Grace and continue helping, he devised a plan to capture the most feared creature, the Torik, the king of the aerial predators, a creature feared and respected in Na'vi culture. Jake risked his life by jumping into a one-way abyss. While everyone is praying, Jake appears before them, making the legend of the warrior Torik Makto a reality, regaining the trust and love of all. Neytiri manages to see him, seeing the authenticity of his being. Jake introduces himself to the great warrior, gaining the trust of the new leader, and then asks for everyone's help to save Grace, They connect with nature, praying that Awa can free Grace from that evil. Grace's body, along with her avatar, is placed side by side, as both are made of the same blood, but the spiritual mother explains that Awa can only act on the Navi body, and Grace will pass through the eyes of the goddess and should try to return. But Grace, very weak, in her last words to Jake, tells him that she is with Awa. Loss strengthens Jake, prompting him to use all he can to fight the corporation, using his own legacy as Torek Magto to carry the message to the other clans that the danger was very near, and that only together could they save that land. They fly together through the four winds and plan everything together, from the Plains Horse clan to the Akrim people of the Eastern Sea. Uniting over 15 clans in total, they now numbered more than 2,000 warriors. The military watched everything closely, monitoring every move of that people, and Colonel Miles, aware of the danger his men and the corporation's base were facing, decides to strike first at the place where they gather, knowing it is a sacred place for all of them. If they destroy that place, everything will be over. On the night before the attack, Jake connects to the Tree of Souls in the belief that Awa might do something, but Neytiri explains to him that she does not take sides in the battle, she only protects the balance. On the day, both sides take their positions, both on the ground and in the air. A massive battle between gunfire and the Navi crowd begins. And although all the clans move and try to put pressure on the aircraft and those on the ground, the firepower is much greater than all of them, forcing the Navi to retreat. The Colonel is now ready to detonate explosives right above the Tree of Souls. With the imminent danger to Pandora's nature, the animals also begin to rebel, showing all their fury by taking down those on the ground and in the air. Neytiri understands at that moment that Awa has heard Jake's prayer and joins the animals, who seem to speak the same language of survival. In the aerial attack of the winged Ikran creatures, Jake manages to bring down the aircraft with grenades, and in the fall, only Jake and the Colonel survive, the latter having protected himself with a heavy robotic exosuit, very close to the Avatarlink base. Miles realizes this and quickly moves to disconnect Jake, but he is stopped by Neytiri, who, riding a creature known as the Hell Panther, fights to prevent him. However, she is brought down when Miles produces a knife and stabs her several times, immobilizing her with the weight of the beast. Jake arrives and joins the fray, but he is also stopped when Miles strikes the glass of the Avatarlink base, cutting off the oxygen supply. Jake, despite struggling to keep breathing, is held in place by Miles, who attempts to take his life. At that moment, Neytiri saves him by firing arrows that strike Miles. The aliens, the humans, return to their dying and condemned world, with only a few chosen to stay. The era of great sorrow had come to an end. Torek Magto was no longer needed. Jake says goodbye to the corporate base, where nothing makes sense to him anymore. He goes on to celebrate his birthday with the Amatakaya at the Tree of Souls, where he is placed next to his own avatar, deprived of oxygen, and connected without the need for any machine, awakening in his avatar only by the natural connection of the goddess of life Awa, in the forest of Pandora. This was a summary of the first Avatar movie. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel. This channel relies on you to keep sending videos. Activate the bell and leave your comments on what you think. See you in the next video.